40k is a pretty superstitious setting, from the religious fanatics of the Imperium to the religious fanatics of Chaos to the totally not religious but still fanatical factions of the Xenos. There is a lot of people who use terms that don't make complete sense in the modern day but are still pretty fun in this game. From the overuses of Latin to referring to genetic issues that are inherited from your parents as curses, the idea of Geneseed curses is one of those things that I find myself gravitating towards and even thinking about quite a lot. Weirdly enough, they are all over the place. Some of them are called curses, but don't really do anything. Some people have multiple, like how the Blood Angels are just... okay, we'll get there. From some members of Dorne's lineage developing a catatonic locked-in syndrome and needing to be put away in the possibly forever box to fix it, to the Lamenters, just the Lamenters. I want to talk about the worst curses in the history of 40k Space Marines, bar none. This is my opinion, and if you don't agree with it, die. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to sling facts like a machine gun firing into an allied boat on D-Day. You either get hit or you show up at my house and stab me to death with a bayonet, which, considering I'm still alive at this point, I'm just going to assume that means that I am always right and have not been proven wrong yet. Yes, I've been reading a lot of Bolt Action and Conflict 47. How could you tell? Either way, remember to use code BONEZONE at checkout for 10% off gamer subs. Subscribe to my second channel for long-form horror video essays, and let's hop into the first set of weirdos with a category I like to call, why do you two look so similar? Starting with the Nova Marines. One of the more impressive second founding chapters, the Nova Marines are incredibly useful. They are one of the shield chapters that protects the Imperium as well as Ultramar, with a really cute, fully quartered white and blue paint scheme. They were one of the most recognizable chapters in the setting on the tabletop. But if there is one thing they are known for, it's their absolute unwavering hatred of Xenos. They are one of those superstitious chapters of Marines that when they see the Tau, they start shaking. When they see an Orc, they start screaming, and if they see a Tyranid, they charge. This actually does tie into their Geneseed curse, simply referred to as Revile the Alien. This curse, like most of them, has 3 different stages of severity. Now, this may be something inherent to the genetics or the culture, but technically speaking, they get a little cuckoo at times when it comes to anything that isn't human. Stage 1 of this is they really hate Xenos of any kind. If it isn't human, they will go the extra mile to kill it. This does have some benefits to it, where they often push themselves harder to eliminate orcs and the like, giving them a little higher level of success when it comes to missions involving those specific Xenos. Then you have stage 2, where they don't just push themselves harder, they will go out of their way to hunt down aliens and even hold grudges that would make the most staunch of dwarves a bit unnerved, going out of their way to fight a specific species of alien if it means it would satisfy some petty grudge. And stage 3, which is comedic levels of xenophobia. I'm talking if a certain group of humans don't look human enough, they will put under a very severe degree of scrutiny to basically weed out if they have any amount of Xenos DNA in them or what have you. They don't like abhumans, they don't like humans that have been modified a bit too much, they tolerate useful psychers like navigators and the like, but outside of that, they hate anything that isn't just a pure strain human or Space Marine, I guess. So basically, to sum it up, their genetic curse is steadily worsening racism, which ends with them being the 40k equivalent of Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. This does make me wonder what their opinion on the Custodes would be. I feel like I should know this at this point, because it probably has come up in the Dark Imperium, because I do remember them showing up in there, but speaking of Dark Imperium, the Marines Errant. Next group of individuals we should talk about, which, as I mentioned, I get confused for the Nova Marines a lot because they look very similar. The Marines Errant being a halved blue and white paint scheme, and the other being quartered, but there is a lot of difference. I actually really like the Marines Errant. They get a lot of tattoos based on their deeds, and they have a very interesting idea of bravery. The tattoos, I should note, also have to have a very specific meaning to them that to some degree is obscured to everyone except for the bearer. Like from the Dark Imperium, there was a Marine who was instrumental in the slaying of Kugath in one of the Plague Wars, and he ended up getting a tattoo of a blue and white clad warrior slaying a giant poisonous serpent, thus symbolizing his help in killing Kugath. Cool, right? But their curse is slightly worse, as it's the Crusader's Call. Now, the curse can be useful, but it does have a lot of issues, thus why it's on this list. So stage 1, the Marine in question becomes bold and especially resolute, brave to the point of foolhardiness, refusing to yield in the face of a foe, even if it would make sense. Though still subject to the normal combat doctrine, they do understand that discretion is the better part of valor. So they work to be a bit of a beacon for morale to their brothers, more so than just a corpse. Because, hey, if one guy seems to know what he's doing, everybody else would feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Stage 2, discretion. What the fuck is even that? Some kind of cake? Yeah, dude, sorry. They were very unlikely to flee before, and now it's pretty much prone to making last stands every chance they can to prove their bravery. And lastly, stage 3, they are literally going to throw themselves at the enemy if it would prove them as brave and valorous in any way, shape, or form. They have a personal level of prestige to uphold, don't you know? And they will prove it, by God. Yep, by the Emperor. They will lead the charge, and they will kill every single Xenos that they see. They will teach Chaos cultists how to speak English with a chainsword in their mouth, and by the end of this day, they're probably going to die. Retreat? Impossible. Dying in combat? Very, very high possibility of that for those who reach the end stages of stage 3. Is it still kind of effective during any kind of warfare or engagement to boost up morale? Yeah, kind of. Bravery and stupidity are usually two sides of the same coin for 40Ks, so the idea of seeing your buddy, who's been around for quite some time, charge titties first into a horde of orc knobs with nothing but a combat knife and a bolt pistol will probably do something to the psychology of you and the majority of the Imperial Guardsmen around you. So, yeah, usually I just look at him and go, hey, he's either incredibly crazy or he knows something that we don't, so I might as well keep fighting if he's that relaxed and comfortable doing that, only to have him get shredded into hamburger meat and come flying back out in small rivulets of red and blue and white. But what do I know? I'm about to get eaten anyway. So let's get into what I can only describe as a chapter's curse that is not really a chapter's genetic curse. It's more just depression. Yeah, it's just depression. The Raptors are one of my favorite chapters of Marines, bar none. Fuck you if you think they are lame. I actually did play them for a little bit and ended up giving my Marines away to someone else who was wanting to get into the game, but that's besides the point. They are the ultimate in reasonable Marines. They change their camo to match the world they are on. They change their tactics depending on the situation, and for some reason they are all incredibly depressed. I mean, their planet blew up and they lost most of their old relics, so yeah, I guess there's that, but whatever. It probably is a mix of the Sable brand that comes from their parent chapter, the Raven Guard, and, just PTSD from aforementioned planet blowing up. But their gene curse is referred to as grim determination. Now, you hear that and you think, oh, they must get really resolved to do things, but in a very sad way. No, not really. Determination is not the word that they should be using. It should be determinism. Basically, they assume that in a lot of cases, if not all of them, it's impossible for a person to change their fate. Their force of will alone cannot change the external factors that shape where their life is going, and thus with their curse, this sort of fatalism creeps in and intensifies over time. So stage 1 of this curse is literally just depression. They are constantly over-preparing, thinking that things always get worse, and they will not get better. Stage 2, they accept that no matter what happens, a Space Marine is going to die on the battlefield, so why does it matter if they push harder if it's all going to end up the same way? And stage 3, they just don't care anymore. They are full-on nihilistic fatalists. They believe that they are always seconds away from death no matter what, so why care about protecting yourself if there is nothing you can do about it anyway? This is one of the worst curses to have in the later stages, if you ask me. See, the early stages lead to them being better prepped, more so than most other Marines would be in this situation, especially for a chapter known for good preparation. So it tends to be a good thing, but in later stages it leads to them being so distracted or lacking in care about their own situation due to them focusing on their own misery that they actually end up putting themselves at risk, not being in cover well enough or not caring as much about giving their position away, subsequently putting the lives of their battle brothers at risk as well. It's a dangerous curse, but much like the Sable brand, you can live with it. and I would assume sometimes even cure it to some degree, though I don't know if they just have apothecary therapy guys to help. I don't know, man. I don't know what you would do. Are Space Marines even subject to talk therapy? It's kind of, I don't know, weird. Whatever. Okay, let's get this one out of the way. The Lamenters are just, I don't like them. I don't think I've ever really liked them. It waxes and wanes, and sometimes I can develop a degree of appreciation for them, but a mix of their specific fan base being completely insane and, you know, just their shtick being very boring to me. I just find them one note, so I just can never really latch on to them. Also, good luck painting checker patterns, heart stencils, and so on. They have really bad luck, but always somehow they get the job done and try their hardest. That's it. That's all they really do. Sure, the characters can be interesting. I've just never found that interesting. It's really not for me, but therein lies their curse. For some reason, somehow, in their creation, the biologist who was making the Lamenters was able to take out the majority of the traits that led to the Black Rage and a decent amount of the Red Thirst, meaning that they had a lot of the benefits of being a Blood Angel, you know, the higher potential for psychers, more frenetic movements at the sight of blood, none of the major drawbacks, turning into a blood drinking savage on the battlefield and having to be lobotomized. So, for some reason, the universe took a note of this and took a great deal of offense, and even though it was through no fault of their own, the Lamenters were punished harshly by reality. They were turned into an example by endless waves of bad luck. Now, I know people say, haha, bad luck, but what does that even mean? See, luck is something we ascribe after the fact. If there are two possibilities, one good, one bad, if the good one happens, well, that's good luck. If the bad one happens, it's bad luck, regardless of the percentages. That's just kind of how bad luck and good luck functions in our perception of reality. The way I see it with the Lamenters, how it works is if ever there's a chance for multiple outcomes in a set scenario, the worst one, or close to the worst one, out of the bunch will likely be the one that happens, as long as it's realistic. Like, yeah, sure, every single plasma gun shot that they fire theoretically could explode just because of a faulty valve, but that's not realistic. The reason they survive is because their endeavors as Space Marines tend to hedge their bets in their favor most times, so the worst outcome is usually not that bad, but when they risk anything, it usually means that the worst thing is going to happen. But they always end up coming out on top just because they're very accomplished Space Marines. They will still somehow accomplish their duties because of it. Like, even if the valve on their specific power armor that is responsible for venting heat is faulty and has gone without maintenance for a while, it ends up cracking and cooking the Marine alive a little bit. The Marine will still somehow be prepared enough to jury-rig it so that they can work a bit longer and take down a few enemies before they turn into a bowl full of soup inside their power armor. It's just basically they're Marines that can deny fate by sheer brute force. I think it is one of the worst ones to have, but the thing is, with the advent of the Primaris Marines, I feel like the Lamenters are just gonna sunset the Firstborn Geneseed because, I mean, Primaris Marines already have all of the benefits that they had, except none of the drawbacks, you know, not as much in terms of Black Rage, not much in terms of the Red Thirst, to the point where it pissed off the flesh terrors, but regardless. So it would make sense for them to kind of phase that out. So, I guess that works for whatever it is. But, you know, the Lamenters are always going to be around, and they're always going to suffer that way, or else their fans would lose their shit. But, yeah. Speaking of losing their shit, let's talk about the most 5 out of 10 Geneseed curses that exist in the setting. That being the Black Rage and its smaller, less abusive cousin, the Red Thirst. Now, when I say it's a 5 out of 10, I don't mean it's mediocre or provides very minimal benefits and minimal negatives. I mean the benefit it provides makes it a 10. It is genuinely one of the best ones you could have. But the drawback is so severe that it also somehow can be a 1, as in it's one of the worst things that could ever be affixed to you as a person. So it averages out to just barely get a passing mark in terms of usability. So probably a byproduct, at least if I had to hazard a guess, of the increased aggression of a Space Marine, the organs that allow you to absorb the memories and instantly absorb and analyze the chemical makeup of anything you consume and eat. The Red Thirst is something that the Blood Angels have always kind of had, which is why during the days of the Revenant Legion, back when they were pre-Snagwinius, I did it again, didn't I? I swear, I still get comments about Snagwinius it bothers me. I really hate that I messed that up. Oh well. But yeah, basically when they were the pre-sanguineous Revenant Legion, they really, really loved drinking blood. But basically how the Red Thirst works is they have this overwhelming urge to soak themselves in blood, as well as drinking it a lot. Now, there is a physiological benefit to it. The Red Thirst is something that is kind of always at the edge of their senses. If they see too much blood for some chapters, or just sometimes just a little bit of blood, depending on the other ones, I'm looking at you, the blood drinkers, they start to salivate, which is pretty damn terrifying. Now, there is tangible physiological benefits to it. They become reinvigorated. Something about their physiology becomes rejuvenated by the inclusion of fresh vitae. When they drink a lot of blood, they can also become more youthful in appearance, and also a lot more agile. Though, if it's in the midst of combat, they actually go into a bit of a berserking rage where they're able to regenerate and shrug off wounds that normal Space Marines wouldn't be able to. Consuming enough blood in combat can make them downright frenetic and unpredictable, which for a faction that is known for very strong melee and psychers, the Red Thirst is really, really useful to have. Now, speaking of something that's useful to have in some way, the Red Thirst's abusive uncle comes into play here, the Black Rage. This is a curse that was likely always in their gene seed, but was awakened by the death of Sanguinius. Imagine in your mind there is a cliff edge into a bottomless ravine. Once you fall into the ravine, you can never come back up, and you as a person are never seen again. The angrier and more unbalanced you are in combat, as well as just plain the more emotional you get, the closer you get to that ledge. The Red Thirst providing more benefits as well the closer you get to that ledge. So the closer you get, the stronger you are, but the more likely you are to fall off. If you fall into the ravine, you are no longer there. You are in that bottomless black abyss, and you are lost to the Black Rage forever. Most of the time. There are a few examples of people who come out of it, but regardless, you are then filled with visions of what Sanguinius and his Marines saw at the end of the heresy, surrounded by traitors, and you suddenly feel like Mark Wahlberg talking about 9/11, but instead you're a berserking Marine thinking you can save Sanguinius. That was a fucking weird reference, but whatever. Basically, you are lost forever to the Rage. You can no longer fully be controlled. Only by the holiest of men in the chapter can you be sealed away in this Tower of the Lost and eventually become a death company. But that's only if you are one of those that is not too far gone. See, some people who fall to the Black Rage actually will attack their brothers on sight regardless of what color they wear. So yeah, once that happens, you are sent off to die one day as a self-destructive melee weapon. But what are the benefits? Well, while you are out there LARPing as Sanguinius, you get the mother of all power boosts, being physically stronger than most Blood Angels by leagues who are already slightly stronger than your average Marine, and also your Red Thirst is firing on max at all times, so you're not just super strong, but super fast and also incredibly aggressive. You know, there is a trade-off. You are literally just a living grenade now to be thrown into a room, explode, and then probably be put out of your misery once you're done there. Unless you're the Flesh Terrors, then I guess you could just explode on demand and then be kind of fine afterwards. Yeah, the Flesh Terrors are weird. They could just enter the Black Rage or at least get really, really close. Like, if I went back to the cliff analogy, it's like they had like climbing ropes that allow them to climb back up, but the rope stops at a certain point, so you can only go so deep into it, but whatever. Before we move on from this specific topic, we gotta talk about one that is actually like literally a curse, and that's like the Rite of Holos and so on that the blood drinkers have to go through. Yeah, they're literally like cursed genetically by Kairos Fateweaver. So yeah, let's talk about that. It kind of sucks. So as the story goes, the blood drinkers, known for having the driest skin in the Imperium, were desperate to find a cure for the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. By any means necessary, they were going to do so. So an at the time member of the chapter, Brother Holos, went to top a holy mountain on a pilgrimage to find an answer. It's said in the chapter's myths that he found the Primarch's ghost up there, allegedly, and they were telling about this weird miraculous ritual, the Rite of Holos, it would eventually be called, because he is known for his modesty, something that would satisfy the Red Thirst and make the Black Rage almost non-existent in their chapter. From what I've seen, for every 100 members that would fall in, say, the regular Blood Angels successors, they would only have a single new Death Company member. So I'd say it's a pretty good success. They realize that the red thirst is a part of the chapter, so they must live with it. It cannot be restrained, and it also cannot be denied. So they basically just tried to get it out of their system every so often by performing this ritual. Basically, before every single battle and at planned specific times. How it works is all the members of the chapter are stripped of both rank and title. They are all battle brothers under the same oaths here and now. And with the help of tech, marine ingenuity, and chaplain prayer, they drain the blood of chapter serfs, drain the blood of some of their battle brothers, and place it into this massive swimming pool and abduct some poor local sap to be used as a sacrifice. And by sacrifice, I mean they just let fucking loose and tear them apart like a bunch of rabid dogs, followed by them apologizing and using the blood to consecrate their armor, as well as re-upping their oaths to the emperor to serve him forever. To their credit, it does work. They have very little drawbacks with this. I mean, the drawbacks they do actually have, although usually just kind of one, are so bad that they could get excommunicated from the entirety of the Imperium, and if God is willing, launched directly into a sun by any other Imperial faction that finds out what the fuck they do. But what the fuck do I know about ethics in this setting where there's a literal mechanic in one of their games about grinding people up into food starch, and it turns out that it's actually an optimal strategy. Yes, I mean Necromunda. Fuck off. It's my favorite game. But regardless, remember the ghost of Sanguinius atop the mountain? Yeah, that wasn't Sanguinius. It was actually kept out of the myth that it was actually Kairos Fateweaver, you know, that big evil turkey. And yeah, he made a deal with Holos to tell him of a ritual that genuinely would help, but in exchange, even though there would be a reduced amount of Marines falling to the Black Rage, one in, say, like 10 of those Marines, instead of seeing Sanguinius attacking Horus like the normal Black Rages would, he would see Holos talking to Kairos, and Kairos would then be able to see said Marine and spill the beans, basically damning the chapter at some point if one Marine basically says, yeah, no, I'm falling to Tzeentch. So all they need to do is have one guy of uneven temper that is likely to rebel, and boom, they're damned forever. To be fair, up to the modern times, as far as we know, they don't really have any records of anyone succumbing to the influence of the Tzeentchian demon, but whatever, it's only a matter of time, I guess. Okay. So, you've been waiting for this. What is the worst genetic curse in the setting? One that has absolutely no tangible benefits, only drawbacks, and genuinely makes me think that the chapter should just be recycled at this point and just restart from scratch. So, yeah, the excoriators are a thing. Hailing from the second founding, the excoriators are a pretty storied chapter, and they have one hell of a curse. I mean, guys, what if I told you that their main drawback is that they literally just shrivel up and die sometimes? That's kind of it. It's this weird curse known as Dorne's Darkness. This curse manifests early on as a bit of a tremor, maybe a shakiness, potentially just a little bit of muscle weakness, but then progresses into a full-on palsy, which then progresses into them basically just locking up and being so lost in thought with depression, they literally cannot take care of themselves. They are suffering from such extreme existential dread that it causes their body to seize up. Yeah, Dorne's Darkness caused them to be afflicted with a depression that stems from the emotional agony that Dorne felt when he had to carry his dad to the Golden Throne after he almost died to Horus in order to preserve his life. The idea of the Imperium not having the Emperor being so terrible to Dorne that it manifested in his sons as a psychic backlash. Think the Black Rage for the Blood Angels, but instead of rage, it's angst, because that's what it is. They become less and less effective in battle and then completely unusable. The thing is, there is a cure, but it's like not commonly useful. I think it's barely like a 50% success rate if ever I think about it. Basically, their Master of Sanctity puts them in a stasis casket specifically designed for this. It's nothing but pure darkness with no sound in or out. It's basically everything proof. The trick is to basically have said Marines stare in complete darkness to sort out their own feelings, I guess. Literally just sticking them in a box and saying, stop feeling so sad, forehead. Which I guess works because some Marines come out of it fine, and the rest just shrivel up and die, usually starving to death, but it works, I guess. They do have a bit of an increased sense of resolve to get the work of the Emperor done afterwards, but outside of that, there really isn't anything that improves in them. It's literally just they develop a really bad sense of locked-in syndrome and then mostly die or get better at some point. It's the shittiest end of the stick, to be honest. I doubt you could argue it, because at least with a lot of the other genetic curses that we've been talking about, they have some kind of benefit. Hell, even the Lamenters have a bunch of shitty fans. Though, I will also state, shout out to one of my favorite ones that is also kind of bad, and that's the Blood Gorgons. And if I could give their genetic curse a title, it would just be all fucked up. They would just on occasion, with every new Marine, just get something. Scales, sharp teeth, gills, lungs on the outside, teeth on the inside, you know, just random stuff. They were literally just mutant Marines from minute one, I mind you. And I think that's one of the greatest looks for them. I think it's a good feeling for them. I think that's cool for them. Though, considering they are like Chaos Marines to hell and back right now, I guess you could kind of guess how that turned out. Also, you guys should be thankful. I could have done nothing but cursed founding chapters here, but I didn't, so womp womp. Anyhow, who do you all think has the worst genetic curse? Did I miss anyone's favorite? Are you a Lamenters fan and think I'm too harsh on them? Too bad. I will not stop because the train has no brakes when I start to be mean. If you thought that's bad, wait till you hear what I have to say about Crackduck. If the walls could talk, they wouldn't say nice things about that guy. Anywho, remember to comment what curses you like most, and also remember to like and subscribe as it helps the channel out. Special thanks to my channel members for supporting this channel. With your continued help, I can survive this rough time of year and get back on my feet. Fun fact, January is like the worst time of year for YouTube, so having you guys here means I can continue to do what I love to do and pay all the people that need to be paid. Thank you all once again for watching. Until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful night.